Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Spinner. I'm just going to run you through again our agenda today. So if you click on the today's agenda tab, you will notice it says daily agenda September. I had a couple of questions via email, so I want to go over yesterday. So yesterday, I originally had some work with plot on the agenda, but because we had a new group of students at school, A through K came to school yesterday. I just spent that time as like a cycle back day. So we just made sure that all of our past assignments were in. Again, this includes the Canvas scavenger hunt, the virtual icebreaker. This includes the three poem assignments, the brainstorming, the pre-write, and the essential questions assignments. And lastly, in class, students completed their final draft on Canvas. You are also introduced yesterday to the etymology list. So again, you should be studying for that on your own. So that was yesterday. So if you did do some plot work, great job. I'm going to go over that again today. If not, no big deal. Do not worry about it. So today, again, I'm going to quickly go over the essential elements of a short story presentation. So if you'd like to follow along, you can click here. And you know me, you know I love Finding Nemo, so I used Finding Nemo as the story, as the narrative that guided this presentation. So we're going to talk today about elements of fiction, or rather elements of a short story. So the first part of a story, or one of the elements rather, is characters. So characters can be people, animals, imaginary creatures. The main character is very important to the overall plot. They kind of help the conflict unfold. So for example, in Finding Nemo, our main character is going to be Dory, because without Dory, a lot of plot events wouldn't have happened. Then you have more minor characters. They support the main characters. They help them along their journey, but they're not pivotal rather to the plot. So an example in Finding Nemo would be Squirt the turtle. Then you have the protagonist. These are the good guys or the main characters. Again, this is Finding Nemo, so of course we had to have Nemo, the namesake of the film. And then lastly, we have the antagonist, the bad guys, the catalyst that pushes the conflict forward. And then this would be, of course, Darla, because without her shaking the bag, then Nemo and the other aquarium fish would have never escaped, right? Or tried to escape. So characters have two types of characterization. It's direct and indirect. So with direct characterization, the author, or in this case the filmmaker, will describe the character explicitly, meaning they will tell you information about the character. So with Nemo, he is based in direct characterization because we know right away about his story of his birth and the barracuda. We know that he has a small fin and that his father is very protective of him. This is all laid out in the beginning of the story for us. Then we have indirect characterization with Dory. This is where the author, or again, the filmmaker, shows what the characters like through actions and dialogue. So this is going to be inferred. We're going to infer this information from evidence. The story is not going to tell us this evidence outright, but we're going to draw our own conclusion. So, for example, we know that Dory doesn't have much family because she is by herself when she meets Marlin, and we learn more about her short-term memory loss. And she doesn't tell us that right away. She repeats herself a lot, remember, to Marlin. So this is kind of how we infer that Dory has memory loss, or that something's not quite right with her and that she is alone. Next, we have conflict. So conflict drives plot. Think of every great TV show, movie, book, comic book, even story. Any story has to have some type of conflict or struggle or problem. So there's different types of conflict. There's internal and external. So internal conflict is a struggle that takes place in the mind of a character. So for example, in Finding Nemo, Marlin, Nemo's dad, struggles with the internal conflict of wanting to protect his son, but also wanting his son to experience the world, right, and have opportunities. He wants him to be like a normal fish, but he's also very protective because of the past. Then we have external conflict. This takes place between characters or outside forces. So there's quite a few external conflicts in Finding Nemo. For example, Marlin running into Sharks, that would be an external conflict because that could take place between Marlin and the shark, Bruce. So that takes place between two characters. External conflict can also be the environment, society, technology, even. So there's tons of types of external conflict. Other types of conflict are character versus character. So characters fighting against each other. At times in Finding Nemo, this is Dory and Marlin, or Marlin initially with the turtles. This can also be character versus nature. So you're going against something natural. So there's a lot of examples in this movie, but other examples include if you're trying to like escape a fire, it's like in a snowstorm, you're running from a bear. So anything that's like a natural element. Character versus self. So again, you're having to make a difficult choice. So for example, Marlin kind of struggles like whether to leave Dory sometimes in this film or keep her with him. Another example is, do you lie to a friend to spare their feelings, or do you tell them the truth? Maybe they ask if the shirt looks nice on them and it really doesn't, but then you have that character versus self, more of that internal conflict. Character versus society. So you're going against what people think. For example, a woman wanting to play in the NFL, the National Football League. And then character versus supernatural. We don't really see this at all in Finding Nemo. It's fighting paranormal or unnatural elements like vampires or communicating with aliens. You see this more in fantasy and science fiction. Then we have setting. You guys are probably really familiar with this. Not only is it time and place, but setting can be real, imaginary, past, present, future. Setting also includes like the time of day, different like variations of setting, right? Like time of day, all of that. And then we have theme. So we're going to get into theme later on, but theme is the main message or lesson that the writer or author wants you to understand as a reader. So this can be outright stated. So sometimes an author will state in their own words, like, hey, this is the theme of, they won't say this is the theme, but maybe they'll have a character say it, they'll title the work of the theme, or they'll have it pretty explicitly stated from what the characters are talking about. Could be implied, so we have to gather this ourselves. And sometimes themes, or I would say most themes, are pretty universal. So meaning I can connect to the theme, so can your mom, your grandma. If you grew up in another country, themes of friendship, love, hurt, anger, pain, joy, sorrow, all of those can be universal themes. Plot. So this is super important. So if you were like taking a nap, doing something else, this is the time that you should be really jumping in, paying attention. So plot is a sequence of events that's built around the conflict or the problem in the story or the tension of the story. So we're going to talk about the 5 parts that plot is broken into: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So in Finding Nemo, our exposition, that's the part of the story, or rather for us, the film, that's going to introduce characters, setting, and it tells us the conflict right away. So, for example, in Nemo, the exposition would be Marlin's cautious nature is shown when he goes in and out of the home indefinitely. His anemone. Remember from the movie? It's kind of funny. Checking for danger. Nemo's lucky fin is revealed, showing that he was physically affected by the barracuda attack when he was just a little fish egg. We also see that Nemo is a regular fish, annoyed by his father's worrying, and Marlin is very socially awkward, and he makes a really bad joke. It's just not funny in the beginning. So that sets up all of those details: character, setting, conflict. So this is our plot diagram. So Nemo will swim up. So he's starting now at 1 exposition. So if you think of this, you might think of it as like a string, and there's going to be tension, right? So pretend Nemo is like the conflict, right? So as he's rising, the conflict or the tension is rising until we get to the breaking point, the climax of the story, the most exciting part of the story. This is what you wait so long for, and then it drops off, right? And then everything kind of hopefully settles itself. So then we'll go over those elements. But remember, conflict is what drives the story. It's what creates that tension. So second, we have rising action. If we go back, that is the number 2 here. So rising action is events that develop the conflict and build interest or suspense in the story. So for Finding Nemo, rising action can be Marlin encountering the sharks. He and Marlin going through the jellyfish. Nemo gaining friendship of the aquarium fish, or Nemo attempting to escape the aquarium. So again, we go from 1 to 2 because there's a lot of events that happen. Our conflict is almost at its most exciting point where there just can't be any more. Like the tension has to break itself somehow. So that happens in the climax. Again, the character meets the conflict head on. It's the highest point of tension or drama. So in Nemo, the search for Nemo intersects with his own adventures in the dentist's office. Nemo escapes with some help from Gale, but Marlin thinks Nemo is dead. So we have Marlin's narrative or story intertwining with Nemo's, but then Nemo also finally escapes, right? That's like what he's trying to do the whole time. He's trying to, the whole movie, go back to the ocean since he's been captured, right? That's what he's trying to do, and that's when it happens. So again, the climax of the story is here because that's where tension is building like a roller coaster. When you get here, it has to drop off, right? Okay. Now number 4 is falling action. This is where the conflict is resolved and loose ends are tied up. So I'm finding Nemo. Nemo tries to save the fish when he is caught in the fishing net. He tells the fish to swim down. Marlin learns to trust his son because Marlin doesn't trust him normally. He doesn't let him do things. And finally, Marlin lets Nemo try to save the school of fish. So again, that is falling action. That's going to take place here. Sorry if you hear my phone ringing. And then lastly, we have resolutions where the story ends. Loose ends are hopefully tied up, but not always. So in Finding Nemo, our resolution is Marlin finally tells the whole joke. If you reflect back to the exposition, he doesn't tell a very funny joke, but here he does. Marlin is also no longer overprotective of his son, and Nemo is confident and happy. So everything that was part of the conflict in the beginning, again, gets resolved. Examples that are horrible examples that are not examples of the resolution are, and they lived happily ever after. He never made the same mistake again. It needs to be specific to the story, and it needs to kind of echo or mirror what happened in the exposition, the beginning of the story. So this is our plot diagram. Hopefully we're going to practice some more plotting points on that. If you guys have questions, let me know. So that's that. So we're going to escape that. And then lastly, so you went through this, and lastly, your last thing to do for English class, if we look from our agenda here, you're going to watch learning elements of a short story through movies and complete a Canvas activity. So you're going to click into modules, and you're going to click on the short story module, learning elements of a story through movies. This will be open for you. You're going to watch this YouTube video, this short clip, and you're going to identify one example of conflict. You should try to tell me what type of conflict it is, right? So if we go back to the beginning, you could tell me if the conflict is internal or external, and you can also tell me if it's character versus character, character versus nature, character versus self, character versus society, or character versus supernatural, okay? So you'll do that. You're going to type right into the text box again, one example of conflict and one example of the climax of a story, again, where the tension builds and it's the most exciting part. So that is your work today. Please, 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 if you have questions, reach out. I'm expecting that this is done. And if you have questions, I'm expecting that you just communicate, okay? Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye, guys.